Hi everyone, it's John Mitchell. In this video we're going to look at the business environments as sources for change. In the last video I spoke about and just gave an example of the pressures that can happen from the business environments to force organisations to change. We spoke about trying to be or foresee those particular pressures and trying to be proactive as possible rather than reactive. So now we're going to look more specifically at the dynamic environments, the internal and the external environments, to see, I suppose, what elements in those can really put pressure, and just examples of how they can put pressure on organisations to change. It's important to note that you'll probably look at an organisation or a significant change issue and look at this more specifically in terms of how that's going to affect your organisation or change issue. So here we're just looking at some examples of factors from the internal and external environments and how they can put pressure on an organisation to implement change. So we'll start off with the internal environment. So the factors from the internal environment can be sources for change, can include, so this is an extensive list, this can include, first of all, management. So managers are aiming to run a successful business, and poor performances, whether that be financial performances or quality or whatever it may be, can lead to management reviewing practices, their objectives, their staff, and all their different procedures and those types of things. And as a result, out of that review can come some change to overcome some of the I suppose, poor performances that have happened. Employees can be a source of change in a number of ways. So disgruntled employees can desire higher wages, better working conditions, those types of things. They can also drive change. They can be the innovator within the organisation to drive change. You look at Google and they've got lots of employees that drive change through their organisation. They come up with new innovative projects and systems for their organisation, so that can help drive change within an organisation. Corporate culture, if the culture is preventing an organisation from achieving its strategic objectives, then it needs to change, and that could be that we've got a really, I suppose, stagnant culture that doesn't embrace change, then that may force change in itself. Culture can also drive an organisation to embrace new behaviours. If it's a really dynamic culture where they thrive on change, that can also drive change within an organisation. Policies, it's often important to update policies. So I'm just going through here the points that we went through really in Unit 3, Outcome 1, where we looked at the factors in the internal environment. Policies was one of those, which forces an organisation to change the way it handles different situations. So whether that be, something's happened within the organisation and therefore we need to alter some of the policies that an organisation has. Now, the operating environment are the things that the organisation has some control over, and they have a direct impact on the organisation, but they don't have full control over these. So these can be sources of change. First of all, customers. Customer trends and preferences force organisations to change in order to remain competitive. They need to stay up with those types of customer trends. Competitors, new competitors entering a market can force change. Current competitors changing their operations. If they find a new way to produce something in the car industry, if a car manufacturer finds a new way to produce a car, which improves productivity, that can force another organisation to change. Increasing market share, implementing new marketing campaigns, all those types of things can put pressure on an organisation to make changes. Suppliers, they can force change within an organisation if they aren't able to deliver on time, deliver poor quality. Might mean you have to change suppliers if they're found to have unethical practices. All those types of things can put pressure on an organisation. And interest groups, there's lots of different interest groups, but I've just got the example here of trade unions can put pressure on organisation to alter the conditions of employment, safety procedures and wages. So there's lots of different interest groups that can put pressure on organisations to try and get them to change. Now, the macro environment, remember, it's forever changing. These are things that have a indirect impact or a direct impact on the organisation, but they have no control over them. So the economy, the effects on the economy, consumer confidence, exchange rates, interest rates, the global economy are all factors that can put pressure on an organisation to change, whether that be to cut costs, whatever it may be. Legal and political, so the changes in government, in their funding or in their legislation can cause an organisation to change. Funding's a big one. Any change in government as well, they might change their industrial relations or employer relations policies and legislation. That can force an organisation and how they can get rid of employees and those types of things. Technology obviously is a major force within any industry. So as new technologies enter the market, can force organisations to adopt them, and if they don't, obviously that can really affect their competitiveness. And globalisation the increasing globalisation has seen money, goods, ideas, and those types of things move around the globe much faster. That should be globe, not glob. So this has forced organisations to rethink their operations in how they're, how they're going to remain competitive with increased globalisation through the market. And social changes, again, a little bit similar to customers, but not necessarily customers. It's really looking at the society's attitudes. They can put pressure on organisations to move with them. So in the past, it's been social responsibility, ethics, and those types of things have really put pressure on organisations to adopt these attitudes and values as well that the society has expected of organisations. So just to recap, the business environments are dynamic in nature, which puts real pressure on organisations to change and to adapt to those particular pressures. Again, being proactive is important in order to remain competitive, and the business environments include the internal, which we went through the different factors in the internal, and the external, where we have the operating and macro environments, which are part of the external environment. So for questions, activities, and more on this video, then come on over to teachingbubble.com.